Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out early. I'm not a morning person, so this is a struggle for me, personally. I just wanted to, I'm going to talk today around investment and diversity in the age of AI. So what does that mean? We're going to go through it. There's going to be some key takeaways that I want you to kind of bring back to your products when you're thinking of developing them. To start with, I know we talk about AI a lot and it's a really hot topic, but to start with, I just wanted to give a definition. This is one of the many hundreds of definitions in the world of artificial intelligence. But essentially, we are imitating intelligent human behavior in computers. So that's what AI is in a nutshell. The first example I want to talk about is a pretty benign one. It's the muffin versus chihuahua. There is a big case study on this, and there is definitely a lot of talking around how this algorithm actually learnt to define what a chihuahua is versus what a muffin is. So the first thing that happened was there was a chihuahua that looked a lot like a blueberry muffin. And as you can see here, and this is pretty big, so you will actually be able to tell the difference pretty easily. But on a smaller scale, you actually, to the computer and to the human eye, honestly, in some cases, you actually can't tell the difference. And so this is sort of a very, very, very benign example. I mean, no one's getting hurt by the chihuahua being misclassified as a muffin. It's just basically, at worst, hurting the chihuahua's feelings. It's not actually doing anything horrific. But there are examples of things that do make a really, really catastrophic difference. So I've purposely picked a benign example. There are obviously a lot of others you can see, for instance, with the Uber self-driving cars when they were running red lights because they had misclassified data in their algorithms. Another one is that last year the UK Home Office, they actually put in passport facial recognition and they could only detect white skin. So these are kind of catastrophic things that happen that are actually happening every day. And it's due to sort of this data that is not diverse. And that's kind of what I want to frame the conversation around today is that companies, every company now, so you will see from startups to all the way through to the biggest public listed companies in the world, they are all investing in AI. So I feel like half of my time at the moment is spent guiding startups and scale-ups in AI practice. And that's because it's such a huge, huge area of investment. And what this actually means is that we're developing all of this technology and we're developing all of these algorithms, but they're not always correct. And you would have heard about, bias and unconscious bias and all of these things. And this, of course, comes in because humans are training the AI. So the data sets that you're getting and the algorithms that you're producing are actually coming from humans. So humans are in the loop, which means that you are actually having, in some cases, the muffin with the chihuahua. The muffin has been classified as a chihuahua or vice versa. And this is constantly happening, and I want to give a few examples around this, and then I want to talk about why it's really important and what we can kind of do to really think about when you're building a product, is really, really, really think about a few key things that you can do to change this a little bit so you're not having as many errors or things like that are actually quite detrimental. So there's a bunch of headlines here, and the reason I've kind of shown this is that this topic is just constantly talked about. It's just absolutely constant. And it's just getting more, like just more and more. Every day people are talking about it. And these are articles from the last sort of 4 years, I would say, potentially a little bit longer. And this is where, you know, people are sort of really calling out around diversity in AI and why it matters and, you know, the importance of it. And that's kind of why we're talking about it and why I'm framing this conversation. Because if you are going to be using AI in any of your products, as most people are, we're building for everyone. So that means that you need a diverse way of thinking. And this is where I kind of gave those couple of examples before, like with the UK Home Office, with the passport facial recognition. I'm sure that there weren't people on that team who, you know, were thinking about it. And this is where it's really important because for them, that is, you know, that's absolutely hugely detrimental to being able to just go through passport control and getting stuck because you don't fit the exact mold in the algorithm that's been built for that. So this is why it's really important. So many leaders are talking about this. And showing prejudice, yeah. Constantly. So this search term, this example that I'm going to give, actually, this here is not based on AI. This exact stat right here, this is actually, you know, fairly true. Like CEOs, you know, for the most part, mainly men, right? So of course the search term is going to display less women. Of course it is. That just makes sense. Now, the detrimental part of this and the part that is sort of the concerning part when you add in sort of some algorithms is that the AI that has been taught to show you jobs, it's showing men executive positions. So you're seeing hiring ads and job ads if you sort of fit this mold of, and then if you're outside of it, you're basically, it's taking in all this data and you're feeding this data to it. And what's happening is you're only kind of basically seeing half of the audience. So the thing that is kind of worrying about statistics like this is, of course, yes, it's worrying that we have barely any female CEOs to start with, but the second thing is that the algorithms that are learning are actually learning off data that is saying that women can't be CEOs. Basically, that's what it's telling the data, essentially. That's what the data is telling the algorithm. And so it is showing job recruitment ads for executive positions to men. And that's where it becomes concerning. So that's just sort of one example, probably my favorite example. So I worked a lot in facial recognition and face detection. This is a real statistic. So this is actually hugely concerning. I will caveat this and say that there are a lot of people working on facial recognition software to be completely accurate across the board. So you can look this up. This is kind of all over the internet, and a lot of people kind of outraged about it, as they should be. So basically, your accuracy goes down, and I want to talk about why that is. The data, so the largest facial data set in the world is 80% men. And 75% of those men are white men. And so you can see how that data being fed into that data set has caused this to happen. And this is where now what's happening and how we're kind of combating this issue in a lot of situations is people are overlapping different data sets over it so they're using the biggest widely known data set still, which is 80% men and majority white men, but they're actually overlaying it with more data. So of all different people, because obviously for me, I'm not a white man. I need to sort of be able to, still work in the world and have facial recognition work for me. And, there's so many products now that use it. So basically the further down you go, so if you're a white woman, you know, you're sort of more likely to be recognized. As soon as you are a woman of color, you're just like completely shut out of this because they didn't have diverse skin tones in this particular data set, which is what we're now trying to fix, essentially. And much like the other examples that I gave earlier, is that there's not only misclassification of data, which was the case of the Chihuahua and the Muffin, but this is there is no data there. There's no data feeding it, so it's not recognizing that you're actually a person that sort of exists in the world. So I want to play a video. I don't know if this is going to, hopefully it's just going to work for me. Okay, cool. So these are just like some interesting statistics. I stole this video from someone else, but there is credit to them at the end, so. So a few of these examples you might have heard of, a few maybe not. There's some sort of bigger ones, depends how into Googling AI sales you are, I guess. So this is the Flickr example. Oh yeah, this is a pretty famous one if you've seen the Apple sort of reveals. Oh yeah, this is my Chihuahua on the phone. I love this one. I swear it was a blueberry muffin though. So there's basically showing like a few examples of, you know, what can happen. There's, as I sort of said with the Chihuahua muffin, quite a benign example, and then you sort of move to the Flickr example or the one where they are looking for blinking, and they are actually much more catastrophic examples in the world rather than just the Chihuahua or muffin. So there are serious things that can happen when we're misclassifying or we don't have enough data. And it even showed in the one with the animals incorrectly labeling, and that basically they didn't have enough data to sort of support that. That's why with that facial recognition one that I actually spoke about, because it is so huge and you need so much data, that's why everyone uses it. And that's why what started happening was, because everyone was using it, it was basically like whatever company was using facial recognition, it was only 99% accurate for white men. And this is because they had so much data. And that's kind of what you want in AI. You want so much data. And for that animal example where it was telling them that they might be snowmobiles or washing machines, that didn't have a whole bunch of data. So it's actually quite easy for those things to kind of get misclassified along the way. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what can we do, why is it important, why is it important to you and not just to, you know, those really large companies who are making the products? It's basically because we're building products for everyone, right? So we're not building, in the instance of facial recognition software, we're not just building for white men. So it's great that it's 99% accurate for white men. It's not great that no one else can use it properly. So these are the kind of things that really, really, really make a difference. And, you know, in the example of the Uber self-driving car that was misclassifying and wasn't actually seeing red lights like several times, when that, if anyone remembers that news story where the passenger got hit, the pedestrian got hit. These are the things that are kind of like life and death scenarios, and that's why it is actually really, really important and why I'm kind of talking about it. So what can we do about it as, you know, product owners, founders, you know, people who are really looking at this kind of stuff in depth and really wanting to change maybe how we sort of think of things? There are a few things. So hiring diverse teams, I can't stress this enough, because in the case of so many of these examples that I've used today, they had no diversity on the team, and that means no one's picking it up, right? So for instance, we were working on some facial recognition software, and you just try it on all different skin tones, all different people, different genders, so many different tests you need to run with groups of people. And if you don't have those people available to you, and you don't have those people creating the software, you seriously don't even think about it. It's not about us just not caring and saying like we're okay with statistics like that, and that we're fine with the fact that it just doesn't recognize you, and that's fine. We don't actually do that on purpose. It just happens, and that's kind of where I start talking about bias a little bit in terms of unconscious bias. So we all have unconscious bias. It's just ingrained in us. There is no way to get rid of it. And because of that, we're sort of predisposed to identify with people like us. And that goes back to, anyway, that's a whole other keynote, to be honest. But anyway, that goes all the way back to, you know, your tribe, and you kind of stay with the people like you. And what happens is that's so comfortable, and that's great, but for when you're talking about data and you're feeding this into an algorithm, that is not good. That you just want people to sort of look like you and sound like you and all these kinds of things, because you're actually not getting any diversity in that. And you're not really thinking about it. You're not consciously thinking about it. So checking your bias, hiring diverse teams, using and creating high quality data sets. Now, using the big data sets, amazing. What a lot of people are doing now is adding on to those. So I sort of mentioned that a little bit before, is like topping those up with you know, their kind of diversity and things that they're seeing as sort of lacking and missing. And that's becoming really important, and that's what all the big companies are doing now. They're using the really big ones that are really famous and huge and, you know, kind of give you all the good stuff. But then they're also having to create their own to fill all the gaps that those big ones haven't accounted for, because there was no diversity to start with. So essentially, if you are thinking about, okay, we know to build a good product, we need to be diverse. We know that. We need to apply that to all of the data that we're feeding in. Another sort of last thing I want to sort of talk about is auditing your algorithms. So that's like all the testing you need to be doing. I mentioned a couple of really big fails, like the passport office. They just shipped that. They just decided to ship it. They actually shipped it knowing that it wasn't actually working for all skin tones. And I mean, to me, that's pretty crazy, but I don't know. I'm not actually sure of the whole story about why they did it. But these will be picked up in the audit process. And this is where it's really, really, really crucial that you're auditing any algorithm that you're creating to make sure that it's actually working for everyone. because we're building products for everyone. Okay, my time is up. Thank you so much.